Hello guys and welcome back to my channel. My name is Lonevic and today, as you can see, something that I've been waiting for quite impatiently, Skyrim, the adventure game from Bethesda and Modiphius Entertainment, so the Elder Scrolls V on your table in the form of a board game. In this video, I will be telling you how to set up and how to play this game, and this is a cooperative or a semi-cooperative game, as you will see, for 1 to 4 players. On my channel there will also be a review and a tutorial playthrough of this game pretty soon, so stay tuned. If you like the content that I'm publishing here on my channel and you would like to help my channel grow and support what I'm doing here, you can always click the like button under the video, hit the subscribe and ring the notification bell to be notified about new videos that are coming on my channel on a regular basis. And if you feel like it, you can buy me a cup of coffee through the link in the description to the video. And now, without delaying this any further, let's open up the box and learn how to set up a game of Skyrim, the adventure game. Okay guys, so as you can see, the board is already on the table and this is a big one. It's a 2x4 fold board with the whole map of Skyrim and some places for cards. And I've also already given myself a character board over here. And now let's take a look at what we do with the rest of the components. So there will be 5 types of dungeons in Skyrim that you need decks for somewhere next to the board so that they will be easily accessible to everyone. And those dungeons are the animal dungeon with this wolf icon on the reverse side, the Daedra dungeon, the human dungeon, the undead, and the automaton dungeon with this symbol on the back. Each of these decks consists of a set of cards, and those cards have numbers in the upper left corner, and those decks should be arranged so that the numbers are in ascending order. So 0 is on the top, and 7 should be on the bottom. If you have a few cards with the same number, like for example 3 zeros in the beginning of every deck, you should shuffle those and place them on their respective place. And you do the same for all the decks. Now, the next thing is that there is a deck of numbered cards, as you can see, from 0 to, well, 500 or even more if you have all the add-ons, and you order them in this box that's provided with the game. And when you choose the correct scenario, the correct chapter for a scenario, they will tell you which numbers of cards you should take out from this box and place them in the form of an event deck over here in the correct numerical order. I will take the tutorial cards right now and place them over here, ordered from 1 to 5. Next, take the wilderness and town decks, shuffle them well and place them somewhere next to the board in easy access for everybody. Shuffle the upgrade and enchantments deck, the basic treasure deck, the advanced treasure deck, and the free market decks, the might market, the shadow market, and the sorcery market, and place those decks somewhere near the board. The final small deck that you need to add is the equipment deck, and also give it a shuffle and place it nearby. Now it's time for all the cardboard components. So take all of the resources that you have with the game, which is the ore, soul gems, plants, experience points, and coins, and place all of them somewhere nearby. I will be placing all the cardboard elements off the board because I'll be just using them for demo purposes only. Also, from the cardboard components, you've got the quest markers, the diamond-shaped enemies, the rectangular skills, and the threat tokens, which also land somewhere nearby. And now, onto the character setup. So each player takes a character card. In my case, I'll take the Khajiit, and you can choose whichever face of the card you want. They're all symmetrical, it's just a matter of gender. Place the character card near your player board, take the matching miniature, and you will be placing it once the scenario tells you to place it anywhere on the map. For now, I will keep it off the map. In the equipment deck, you need to find fists and ragged robes. With those 2 cards, all players are starting the game, unless you are a Khajiit, in which case you replace the fists with the claws. You place your weapon in the middle of these 2 hand symbols as a 2-handed weapon, or both hands using the claws, and you place your armor over here, above the armor symbol. Each player also starts with 1 potion of minor healing, which you place over here in the miscellaneous category, and each player also starts with 2 plants, which we place over here. Finally, it's time to mark the tracks on your player board, and for this we need the following elements. We need the final blow cube, which is this black cube, and you can also use the cardboard elements with the game, but well, it arrives with those fancy cubes, so I'm using those. So you place this on the first space of your strength track, then you use the 3 white limiter cubes and place them below the 0 sign, so on the 6th space on each of those tracks, and then you use the colored cubes to mark the maximum on each of the tracks before the limiter. In this case, you have 5 life, 5 stamina, and 5 magicka. And this is the general setup done, ladies and gentlemen. So now we can go on to the overview of the game and then to explanation of how the turn flows and how we play the game. Elder Scroll Skyrim, the adventure game, is a kind of a semi-co-op game in which all the players will be moving around this map, traveling, doing different quests, whether those are world quests, which will be placed over here, or their personal quests. You can team up to do some of them. You can do them solo if you're powerful enough or you feel lucky and powerful enough. And during this scenario, sometimes you will have quests that will be timed or that will require you to group together in order to do something, but everybody is kind of carving their own adventure through their personal quests and through the advancement of the main story. But failure in this game, so failing a world quest or failing your personal quest or failing the main quest of the game, doesn't exactly mean the end of the game, because it just changes something in the world and then you can continue playing unless the game tells you that, well, it's game over time. And you'll be exploring the dungeons. We've got 5 types of those. You'll be upgrading, leveling your character, teaching them new skills and equipping them with different items, and basically, generally, that's it. So let's take a look now at some of the elements of the game or some of the components in order to understand the game a bit better before we dive into the turn and the turn order. So this is our character board and our character, ladies and gentlemen. And as you can see, you've got different markings around this character board, and you'll be placing different items around this character board as time goes. Now, you've got a place for your quest, and you can have a maximum of 2 personal quests every single time, so you can travel the map and fulfill them. You have 2 places for status cards, but the amount of those status cards over here is not limited. So you can have more status cards than 2 in this case. There is no limit to how many you can have at the same time. You can have a maximum of 4 trinkets and or potions that you can place over here. You can have 1 pair of boots. You can have 1 armor and 1 headgear or helmet or headpiece or whatever you call it. And you can have 2 one-handed weapons or a 2-handed weapon, as in the case of the claws. And whenever you lose an armor or you lose your weapon that you currently have, you default back to your ragged robes and claws in the case of the Khajiit, or the fists in the case of all the other players. You also have 4 backpack icons here on the bottom, and each of them can hold 1 item which you can carry with you, and if your backpack is full and you need to carry more, then you can switch around. Over here we have the spot where we can place all the resources, so all the plants, all the soul gems, and all the ore that we collect during the game. Here is some space for the coins, and here we've got the space for the XP tokens. And here there's a place for our character card. So everything is centered around this character board. Over here you've got your health and stamina and magicka limiters, which you'll be moving forward as you progress in the game and as you level your character, thus increasing your maximum amount of stamina, health, and magicka that you can get. And this token symbolizes the final blow, so if you get hit too much and your health drops too much, this will be kind of like this last Hail Mary kind of step before your character gets critically wounded and has to drop out of any combat situation they are currently in. The game of Skyrim the Adventure consists of game turns which have a few phases. First, the starting player, so the player with the starting player marker, resolves the top event card of the deck. Then all players in turn order may move around the map to reposition their minis and go wherever they want to go. Then each player takes 1 action. Depending on the location they are in, they have some different options to choose from. Players who are in strongholds like Whiterun or Falkreath or Morthal or any other named city around the board can also visit the market at this time in order to purchase resources or purchase some gear. After this is done, people who have enough experience points have to level up, and then the starting player token is passed to the next player and another turn begins from drawing the event card. So now let's take a look closer in detail at each of those phases. So drawing an event card can have a few different results. Some of the event cards will place or tell you to move roaming monsters around the board. And what happens then is that each monster has a number printed on the monster, and the card will tell you what number of monsters, so which number of token you have to place on the board. And I don't know if you can see very clearly, but for example, this Dunmer cultist has the number 394, and it's a double-sided token. So if a card refers to this and tells you where to place this monster, this is what you will do. This is mostly done through those event cards or quest cards sometimes. And roaming monsters, when they are moving, they will have two options. They can move to the closest stronghold, or they can move towards a player, either the starting player or the closest player, and that's what you will be doing, but they move only by one space along any route. If a player moves onto a space with a roaming monster, they will have to encounter it as their action for the turn. Now, other event types can include instant events, and in this case, when you draw an instant event, you resolve it immediately and then place the card into the discard pile, unless the game says otherwise, because sometimes you will have a symbol on the card that tells you to remove the card from the game entirely, which is what you will then do. Sometimes there are active events, so if you uncover an active event, you place it over here, and this active event is a passive that is working throughout the whole game until a new active event is uncovered from the event deck, and then this one is being replaced with the new one. So there can be only one active event over here and one active event working on the game, but removing one and replacing it with another is usually without any consequence. And the third type of events that can happen in this deck are world quests. And as you can see, you've got 4 spaces for world quests over here. And when you draw an event that is a world quest, you place it here. You place a gray quest marker on the place that the world quest is referring to, and you can do the quest. But if you have already 4 world quests over here and you draw a new one from the events deck, you will have to decide which of those quests you want to cancel, and you have to resolve the failure of this world quest in order to have the new one in its place. And also, the threat tokens can be placed on world quests, and once there is a limit reached of those threat tokens on a world quest, the world quest is also deemed a failure, and you have to resolve the failure effect of that quest. And talking about threat tokens, a lot of event cards, as you can see on this tutorial example, have a symbol over here that means that you have to right now deal 1 threat token wherever you want on the map. So threat tokens kind of get you closer to some stuff that can be failed in the game. This card is a world quest, and it says that I disturbed a group of trolls, so I need to place a quest marker in a mine in Hjalmarch, which I will do right now. So Hjalmarch is this province. There is a mine over here. So here I've got a quest marker. As you can see, you've got clear 367. So this will be the monster that I will be fighting. And this is the success and the failure effect of this world quest. So the world quest will travel over here. But the event card also has 1 threat token symbol, which means that right now, after drawing this event card, I need to take 1 threat token and place it somewhere where it can be placed on the board. Now, threat tokens can be placed in many places. On your personal quests or on world quests sometimes, and in the corner of the card you have a limit of threat tokens that can be placed on this card. So I could place this threat token on this card, but that would mean that if anyone places another threat token here, making this the limit of 2, this quest is automatically failed. So this is it. And I can also place those threat tokens over here on these strongholds. So we've got 3 spots for each stronghold when we can place threat tokens. If a stronghold has 1 threat token, that means that the market in this stronghold will be inaccessible to all the players. So you can't purchase anything in this stronghold. If you have a second threat token placed on a stronghold, that means that this stronghold is closed because they are afraid of newcomers, and you need to pay 5 coins even to enter the stronghold itself. And then if the stronghold has 3 threat tokens on it, that means that it's rioting, and for each rioting stronghold you need to add 1 threat token to any place on the map, so either a quest or another stronghold, every turn at the start of the turn. So the more strongholds are rioting, the more unrest you've got on the map, the quicker you might fail the game, and the more difficult it will be. So for now, since I've drawn the world quest, I will place this 1 threat token on it because this is safe. Nothing changes over here. I still have 1 more to go before I fail this quest. And this is it for the event phase. Now let's talk about moving our characters. Let's say that my Khajiit starts in Whiterun. So during the move phase of the game, I can move up to 4 spaces, so 4 different locations along a route, unless I run into a roaming monster, at which point I have to stop, and this is my move for the game. But additionally, you can use carriages. So instead of moving, if you are in a stronghold, like I am in Whiterun right now, you can choose to take a carriage to a different stronghold on the map, and you pay 1 coin for each hold you move. So for example, if I want to move from Whiterun to Dawnstar, it would cost me 1. Since those terrains, Whiterun and Pale, where Dawnstar is, are adjacent. But if I wanted to move, for example, from Solitude, which is here, to, let's say, Riften, which is here, I would need to pay 3 coins, because I would need to pay 1 to move to Morthal, which is the stronghold in the next adjacent terrain, 1 to move through Whiterun, which is the next stronghold, and then from Whiterun I can move into the Rift and to Riften for a 3rd coin. So you've got 2 options of movement. Either move 4 spaces along roads or pay to use carriages to travel between adjacent strongholds, so strongholds in adjacent terrains. And each player performs their move action in turn order, and after this happens, we go into the action phase. So in the action phase, we have a few things that we can do, and we'll be talking about them one by one. But first, let me preface this with the fact that during the action phase, before or after you perform your action, you can always visit a market if you are in any of the strongholds. And those markets tell you which cards you can buy. So for example, in Riften, you can buy cards from the green or blue deck, so from the Shadow or Magicka deck of equipment, and you can do that at a cost of 1 coin, and then you can draw an additional card from the same deck that you've chosen for an additional 1 coin, and so forth and so on. And if you find a gear piece that you like, you can purchase it for its price. And for example, in Falkreath, you can do this for the green deck, or you can purchase resources for 6 coins for ore, 4 coins for a plant, or 6 coins for a soul gem, and so forth and so on. So different actions are accessible in the market. You can also upgrade items, you can buy a horse for 10 coins. All of those things are described in the rulebook pretty well, so I won't be going into detail here. But you do this before or after your action for the turn. And now let's talk about the actions themselves. You can explore an area. So if you are in a wilderness area, which is an area with this tree symbol, or if you are in a town area, so in any of the strongholds, you have the option to explore this area by drawing the top card from the respective deck and resolving it. This will sometimes lead to quests or to some events that you will be doing, or some other things that, well, we won't be spoiling right now. If a player is in a location that's specified with a quest marker, either it's a world quest or their own color of quest marker. For example, if I'm the red player, this will be my marker somewhere here. You can use your action to resolve the quest that you are at, and this will usually be connected to performing some kind of a skill check or having some combat, and we will go back to this in a moment. You can also encounter a roaming monster, which you have to do if you're in a location with one, and this will lead to combat as well. And you can explore a dungeon, so if you are in one of those dungeon locations over here, you explore the dungeon that's connected to this location. And talking about exploring dungeons, for each chapter and each campaign, you will find in the box a card that has this dungeon challenge information. And as you can see, campaign 1, chapter 1 for me, and it will tell you which location visited corresponds to what enemies and what encounters. So, for example, if right now I would visit a dungeon in this location near Whiterun, I would look at this icon and I would see that I will have one human encounter and one Daedra encounter separately. Sometimes there will be encounters with 2 monsters at the same time, but this is one combat after another. So I will first fight a human enemy from the deck of the human encounters, and then a Daedra from the Daedra encounter deck. And those decks, remember, are stacked from 0 to 7, so the easiest ones are on top, but as you are growing in strength and as you're leveling up your characters, those decks will also grow in strength. So now, guys, let's talk about skill tests first, because this is something that you will be doing a lot in the game. The game comes with a set of dice for performing the skill tests, and I will show you an example of a skill test right now. So, for example, here you have a quest in which the objective is performing a skill test for speech, and you will find out whether you passed it or not, whether you passed the quest or not. And the quest is in Windhelm, so I could do it if I'm in Windhelm. So how I read those skill tests is that you always, during a skill test, you always roll 3 dice plus an additional die if you have the correct skill. In this case, this would be speech. But I don't with my character right now, so I only roll 3. And the result that I need is 2 of those circular symbols, which are the most common on the dice. The dice are divided like so, that you get 3 of those circular symbols, so you get a 50-50 chance of rolling this. You've got 2 symbols of this triangle, and you've got 1 diamond symbol, which is the highest level of difficulty in a test. So in my roll, I would need 2 easiest symbols, and as you can see, I got them, so I would pass the test and I could flip the card and get the success option from this quest. However, if I rolled, for example, like this, so I have only 1 circular icon, I can push this test, and pushing has a price, and this can be priced in coins or in a resource. And I can push as long as I can afford it. So if I had a coin, I could pay it to reroll 1 of those dice and see whether I get the result that I need. And then I would decide if there is a success because I rolled and pushed and I got a success, or if I can't afford to reroll anymore and I would have to accept the failure option. So those are the most typical skill tests that you will find in the game. But when sometimes a skill test instructs you to test against your health, your stamina, or your magicka, instead of a particular skill like speech that you've seen a moment ago, you, instead of rolling only 3 dice, you roll as many dice as your maximum health, stamina, or magicka, depending on the test, allows you. So you will have a bigger pool, you may have a bigger requirement, and you can also have some information on what you can do if you need to push the test in order to pass it. So those are the different skill tests that you can do in the game. Now let's talk about the combat. And combat will be probably the longest of the things that we'll be talking about here, and it has a certain list of stages that you have to go through in order to resolve a combat. So you fight until you or all the participants in the combat of the players are critically wounded, or all of the monsters are dead. And that's, well, the easy summary in this case. All battles will start with the ambush and sneak phase, because the characters might want to sneak up on the enemy, or the monsters want to ambush the players, and let's take a sample monster to look at. Every time you take out a monster card to fight, you also look at the armor of the monster, whether it's heavy, red, or yellow, which is light, or blue, which is magicka, and you place a marker of the respective color next to the level of the armor. So if I'm fighting this mud crab right now, I would place this marker on the second level where the heavy armor marker is. And first, if the monster had an ambush effect, you would resolve that, but if not, then we can try sneaking to the monster. And you do a normal sneak test, but for every sneak ability that you have on your character. So for example, the Khajiit, you can use night vision once per round and can lose 1 health to gain sneak 1. And you have 1 sneak on your ragged robes, you could, for example, add maximum of 2 dice, 1 from the sneak over here and 1 from the sneak if you paid 1 health. But I won't pay 1 health, so I will only have 4 sneak dice, 3 for the normal test and 1 from my ragged robes. And if I roll this and pass, I can attack the enemy without any consequence and without having to do a test for the attack. So I would just choose the attack, pay its cost, and the enemy would suffer the wounds. But let's skip that for now. If you want to see a full playthrough along with the combat as well, you can watch another video on my channel which has the tutorial playthrough for the game, and I will be having a full round of combat and all the encounters over there. After you do the sneak or ambush, whether it failed or succeeded, the players have an option to use potions and swap gear in and out in the beginning of every round of combat. And then the players decide who will act in this combat round. So there is always 1 person acting. So during a round, 1 person attacks, gets attacked, and then we have another round. You can reorganize your gear and then select another person if you have more than 1 person fighting the same combat. So if you are fighting solo, you just go 1 by 1, round by round. If you have 2 or more people, 1 person attacks, then the other person has to attack before the first person can attack again. So everybody has to take a turn before we go back to the same person round after round. And in a normal combat round, the player rolls the die for the monster to decide on the attack. So in this case, you can see a skull and an axe icon next to the pincer attack for the mud crab. So if I roll a skull or I roll the axe, this attack would go in and it would hit me for 1 heavy damage. And if any other icon or a blank is rolled, then the crab basically missed, because they don't have any iconography over here. And what happens when an enemy hits me is that I look at the damage that the enemy does, and if I have armor that corresponds to the type of damage, I reduce this damage and I don't lose health. So for example, if this is 1 heavy and I had an armor with at least 1 heavy, this would annul the damage and I would not lose any health, but my stamina drops by 1 because I got staggered anyway. So you always will lose 1 stamina even if your armor kind of absorbed the whole blow. But if the crab attacked me for 3 heavy and I had only 1 heavy armor, then I would lose 2 health instead because I got damaged by the attack. But in this case, the crab has 1 heavy and I have 1 light armor, so this 1 heavy makes me lose 1 health because I don't have anything to protect myself against. And right now, after the attack from the enemy, the player decides what attack they are going to choose from the weapon. And let's take a look at this right now as well, up close. So there are different attacks, some with a cost, some that require a skill, and they have different test results as well. So I could scratch without paying anything, and I would make a normal test for 3 dice, and if I roll a triangle, I would deal 2 heavy or 2 light damage. I could choose which ones, and since the crab has 2 heavy armor, those 2 heavy damage would be absorbed, and if they are absorbed, the crab would lose 1 health anyways, because they always lose 1 health no matter if the attack was absorbed whole or not. If this was, for example, 5 damage, then the crab would absorb 2, but 3 left over would kill him because armor would drop by 2. I can have a tear attack, which is easier to win a test for because it requires the lowest amount of test, but it costs me 1 stamina, and I can dodge. So whenever an enemy attacks me and I can see that this attack would kill me or hit me for too much, I can sacrifice my attack, and instead of attacking, I can choose and pay for the dodge action, test for it, and if it's successful, I avoid the whole attack, but I cannot attack myself this turn. And during testing your attack, you can also push the attack by rolling an additional die to the attack by paying for it with stamina, and if you are using a spell, you can use magicka to push the test in order to see if you hit successfully. There are also follower actions that can be used if you have a follower during combat, but this is explained in the rulebook very well, and in the beginning of the game no player has any followers, so I will skip over that. Now, after a combat is finished, if you have another combat waiting because you're in the dungeon, you refresh your stamina and your magicka, but not your health. In a case if you are waiting for the next combat, you can always pay a plant in order to restore your health between the combats. But if this was the last combat of the dungeon, of the quest or anything else, all the tracks return to the maximum. So you always get healed and you get your stamina back and everything. Now, one last thing when it comes to combat is the final blow. So when a battle gets particularly tough, you will always have like an ace up your sleeve. This is this final blow token. So when a player receives any amount of damage that would reduce their health to this spot, so the one but last before dying, so the final blow, the damage stops at this place, at the final blow token, which is removed and replaced with the red one. Right? And from that point, any amount of damage you receive from the final blow will mean that the player is critically injured, and this removes them from the battle. So if my token was over here and I was damaged by 4, I would only move the damage up to here, and this would mean that the next damage that I take from the next attack would kill me, but I still have a final chance to kill my enemy. So this is this one last thing that you can do. And the player who has been critically injured, so lost all its health beyond the final blow, draws an event card and resolves it, and then the player takes as many threat tokens as the number of players and has to distribute them on the board between the strongholds or the cards that can take threat tokens. And if this was the last player in the combat, well, the combat is failed basically. When you level up, the first level up costs 7 experience points, the next costs 8, then 9, 10, etc, etc. When you are gaining XP, which is important, when you are gaining XP from quests or from doing anything on the board, you have a limit up to the required one that you need for leveling up. So for example, if I'm on level 1 and I need 7 XP to level up, all XP that I would gain above the 7 are lost. So I can't bank XP until I level up. So the player takes a skill token of their choice, which they haven't learned yet from the reserve, places it face up on the first slot over here. So for example, like so, and this means that the next level will cost me 8 experience to level. And after choosing a skill token, the player then increases one of their maximums by 1 point by moving the limiter and then moving the corresponding marker. And when a player becomes very powerful, they can start learning legendary skills. Now, a player who has already learned all 8 skills, so has all of those 8 windows for XP covered, they can pay 15 XP in order to flip one of those skills to the other side, which is the legendary ability. And talking about leveling up, my Khajiit starts with one ability that they have over here, which is night vision. You can use it once per game turn. But after you learn a sneak skill, you gain another ability, and after learning pickpocketing, you gain another ability. And this is something that I've learned now, pickpocketing. So right now I could gain 2 coins in every human dungeon, town, or wilderness encounter. So I'll be just earning money as a passive ability thanks to my pickpocketing. And the last thing that I want to talk about right now is improving gear, so upgrading or enchanting it. As you can see, gear can be crafted for a price or bought. So this is the price that you have to pay for the gear, and this is the crafting price that you have to pay if you want to craft the gear. And it can also be enchanted for 2 soul gems or upgraded for 2 ore. And what happens here is that if you are in the market and you want to upgrade or enchant your gear, you basically pay the cost and you draw the card from the enchantment and upgrade deck, and you can push this draw by paying additional single ore or soul gem in order to draw additional cards. If you are enchanting a card, you basically use this skill and place it so that it's visible under the card that's enchanted. If you are upgrading the card, if it is a weapon, you place the upgrade on the right side so that the number increases the attack or attacks, because there are 2 numbers. And if you are upgrading your armor, you do it like so, so that the new proficiency for the armor is visible. So this armor would now defend me against 1 additional heavy attack. And that's basically it. So after you did the event card in a turn, you moved, you performed your action, you leveled up if somebody had leveling up possibility, you pass the starting player token to the next player and you go back to the next round, and so forth and so on. And I will finish right now with this explanation so that the video doesn't take too long, unfortunately, but you can take a look at another video on my channel in which I am doing a tutorial playthrough in which I will be performing all those actions in sequence and in detail so that you can see what's happening during a live game without too many spoilers, because the tutorial doesn't have a very enthralling or, well, spoilery storyline, let's say. For now, thank you very much for watching, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Lone Vic. This was an overview of the rules for Skyrim, the adventure game, Elder Scrolls V from Modiphius Games and Bethesda. If you liked the video, you can always support what I'm doing here on my channel by clicking the like button, hitting the subscribe and ringing the notification bell to be notified about new videos on my channel. In the description to this video, you'll find a link if you feel like buying me a cup of coffee. And also, if you have any questions, any doubts, or you need any clarifications for the rules, you can use the comment section to ask those questions. I am answering them quite frequently. Thank you very much for watching and being here. I hope this explanation helped you in any way with learning how to play the game, and see you very soon on my channel here yet again. Thanks and have a great day. Bye bye.